Alright, welcome guys to the Slowpoke World, and we're here today covering Centiskorch VMAX, the big bad hitter with Darkness Ablaze, capable of one-shotting literally anything in its way. So let's just get started, shall we? So Centiskorch is a VMAX Pokemon, 320 HP, with one attack, Gmax Centifurner. That's a cool name. I hope that stays like that instead of getting translated differently. Which does 40 plus 40 for each fire energy attached to this Pokemon. After you've done your damage calculation though, you can attach one fire from the discard. So it's almost like an Oblivion Wing to itself, but that extra energy you attach doesn't count for the damage calculation. So yeah, that's what we're going to do now, just try and get as many fire energy onto Centiskorch as we can and just go to town. So we're going to start off with a nice 4-3 of the Centiskorch. The Centiskorch V is kind of okay, to be fair. It's got the Burning Emissions attack for one fire energy, does 20 damage. You may discard one energy from this Pokemon. If you do, you can choose one energy from your opponent's active and discard it. So against stuff like ADP or Dragapult, you can rip off their energy. If you go in second, this is really set them back, and then obviously it doesn't matter if it's in the discard pile because the Centiskorch will just bring it back anyway. And then you've got 4 for 180 Burning Train. We don't really like that. Got 3 Jirachi. This is just going to help us draw through, keep ourselves ticking over, because we are, spoiler alert, we will be playing a Welder engine to get as many energy onto Centiskorch as possible, and Jirachi is just going to help us find them nice and easily. Got 2 of the Volcanion Flare Starter. Now this is insane. If you can get this off, that's one other reason why we play the Jirachi as well, is because with the Jirachi it's going to be a lot harder, a lot easier I should say, to pull off that Flare Starter. And obviously if we're going second on our first turn, we can attach 3 fires from the deck to one of our Pokemon. So obviously the idea is if you go in second, you want to Flare Star onto your Centiskorch on the bench, maybe even Welder to it, and all of a sudden you're now staring down a 6 energy Centiskorch turn 2. And that's going, that's a big scary thing to deal with for the opponent, right? So yeah, Volcanion's pretty close. If you can get it off, your win rate just goes insane. It's nuts. We then play 2 Dene GX. Again, we're a Welder deck. We have to draw through. We have to be able to find our Welders, our fire energies, all this good stuff. So I like the 2 Dene. And then 1 Eldegoss for a similar vein. It's going to let us, reuse any healing cards that we've got, like Malolana. Let us reuse bosses so we can gust on so we're not hitting like Jirachi late game. And it lets us, most notably, just lets you reuse Welder, which is, sometimes really important, right? Speaking of Welder, dear, knocking the camera, well done, Shay. We've got 4 Welders, come on. There we go, 4 Welder, no need to explain that. We're a fire deck, we need fire energy. We do more damage for fire energy that we can attach. So I think 4 Welders is pretty, almost, well, no, it is definitely a must-have. We then play 3 Professor's Research, just to help us draw through. We don't play a full 4. We want to be Weldering more often than not, honestly. So I think 3 is fine, but sometimes you do need to see cards. For what you find the research will let you do is combo into the Flare Starter turn 1 more often than not. We got 2 Malolana. We don't really, when we let our Centiskorch get knocked out, if we can avoid it, I should say. So we play 2 Malolana. Again, we can reuse it with Eldegoss. If it ends up in the bin early on, doesn't matter. We can Eldegoss it back. And because really, our ideal game plan is just going to build up 1 massive Centiskorch and just sweep the board with it, right? So Malolana is going to help us do that. And then 2 Boss's Orders. Now I really would like a 3rd, if I'm completely honest, but space. So if you can find space, I think 3rd boss might be one of the first cards I go for. But again, we don't want to be hit once we get like that big 6-7 energy Centiskorch. We don't want to be hitting into Jirachi or Grookey. You know what I mean? Boss is always going to let us do that, or avoid that, I should say. Got 4 Quick Ball because we need to find NA, we need to find Eldegoss, we need to find Centiskorch V and Volcanion. Thinking about it, so 4 Quick Ball is almost necessary, I think. 4 Switch, again, this is going to mostly help us with our Stellar Wishes. This is going to help us get the Volcanion Flare Starter, and it's going to help us just be a little bit more maneuverable, really. I think 4 Switch in the net post-rotation format seems really strong, in my opinion, so I see no reason why to play 4 here. Again, because if we have the opportunity to Flare Star, we want to try and do anything in our power to do that, and 4 Switch will help us do that. In a similar vein, 3 Scoop Up Net. This is just going to help us with our Jirachi. I wouldn't mind a fourth here also, but it tends to be, we don't actually use Cinderace that often throughout the game, so I don't think you need a full 4 count. You never really use it at the start, and so once you've got that Centiskorch going, you want that in the active slamming stuff around. It's also good for picking up Jirachis and Volcanions mid to late game, so they have to go through the big Centiskorch as well. They can't just Guzma around, Wassels around I should say, try and pick up cheeky prizes that way. You can just pick everything up and say, right, deal with this big Centiskorch VMAX for like 7-8 energy. Do it. Or attempt to do it, I should say. Got free Pokemon communication. This is going to help us find our Centiskorch VMAX really, because we don't really want to play an evolution instance in a deck like this where it only searches out the VMAX. So I think free Pokecom is going to be really good for helping us find that Centiskorch VMAX as early as possible. We don't really want on 4 though. We don't really want enough Pokemon to warrant playing a full 4. But yeah. And then getting on to some more Healy stuff. 2 Hyper Potion. Interesting card. It's not a card that's going to see a whole lot of play, but I think in Centiskorch it's really good. What Healy Potion? I almost called it Healy Potion. What Hyper Potion does is heal 120 damage from your Pokemon that has at least 2 energy to it attached to it. If you heal any damage in this way, discard 2 energy. So again, in combination with stuff like Malamar, you can heal off 240 damage, which is like a whole Zacian Brave Blade, which is pretty nuts. And it's gonna help keep that Centiskorch around as long as possible, because that's what we need to do. Like I said, once we build up this Centiskorch, let's say you've got a 7 energy Centiskorch, right? Which isn't that actually too hard to do. If you have to discard 2 energy off a Hyper Potion, you know, to potentially stick around, take another 2-3 prizes, it's almost a no-brainer, right? So I think the Hyper Potion is pretty cool. Again, you know what? After playing some more games, it might be worth trying maybe even more Hyper Potions to see, like, you know, how impactful they are. But I think at a 2 count, they have definitely swung me some games, but I wouldn't mind a couple more. Right now, I've left in 2 types of cards here, and depending on how spicy you want it to be, you can pick one or the other. Let's start off with the non-spice one, okay? So we've got 2 Big Charm. Similar vein to the Hyper Potion, similar vein to the Malamar. We just want to keep our Centiskorch around. 320 HP for a VMAX isn't actually terribly on the high side, so Big Charm pushed it up to 350, okay? But, you know, if you want to be super Spice Lords, we can play 2 Giant Bomb. Now, actually, we don't mind a 3rd Giant Bomb if we are playing Giant Bomb. So what the Giant Bomb is so good for, right? Like, let's say you're struggling to build up that massive Centiskorch VMAX, where you haven't got the 7 energy, 8 energy one. Giant Bomb is perfect maths where if they want to 2-shot you, they have to go into Giant Bomb. That's just part of the course. That has to happen. And what the Giant Bomb will let you do is, you know what, say let's say you've got 3-4 energy on you now. All of a sudden, if they hit into you, you are starting to threaten them quite a lot back. So Giant Bomb is super cool for that as well. So yeah, remember, if you can pick one or the other one, them ones, okay? All those people that fly through to the end and screenshot the list and comment, they're going to be thinking, what on earth is going on here? But you guys who watch the video, you'll know. And trust me, there's a lot of people that do that, just skip to the end. Might have to take the camera out a little bit here. There we go. Right. And we've got 1 reset stamp. I wouldn't mind a second, in all honesty. I wouldn't mind a second one, but again, space is kind of tight. So it's just good that, like, let's say they do KO the big Centiskorch VMAX, and you can Welder attach one, getting that 3-4 energy-esque type range. If you can just combine that with a stamp and say, right, I'm gonna start building my second one up now. You got 3 cards in hand. Come on now. That's a lot of your opponents. I think 1 stamp is kind of cool. 2 Giant Half. We don't really need to explain like else here, do we? Like, it's going to help keep our welders nice and satisfied, weldering for 2 all the time as much as possible. Yeah, now one of the Japanese lists did play a Wonder Lab, but I can't really find the space. If you can find space, Wonder Lab in here is really cool, because you're obviously always overpaying your attack costs here. So yeah, worth keeping that in mind if you can find space. That's another thing if you can try and find space for. We've then got 4 of the new, what's it called here? High Heat Fire Energy. What this is now, you can't welder this, unfortunately, but what it does do is the fire Pokemon this card is attached to, its HP is increased by 20 and it stacks. So in combination with Giant Charm, in combination with the Heat Fire Energy, you know, this Centiskorch is now starting to get, you know, a lot more tankier. And that's kind of what we want to do, and honestly, like, you know what I mean. So with the Heat Fire Energy, that's why I was sort of tempted to try out the Giant Bombs. To be fair, I haven't actually played many games with the Giant Bomb. I've mostly played games with the Big Charm version, not gonna lie to you. Gameplay coming soon later in the week for that. But yeah, there's Heat Fire Energy. I think you have to play 4 though. You have to play 4, because if you do build up that big Centiskorch, you want to keep it around as long as possible. You don't want it going down something silly, and the Heat Fire Energies will let you do that. It'll just help you keep ticking over. And then riding off the list, I think it's 9, 5, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 9 basic fire energies. Hold on, let me get a dice there so I can see that's a bit off screen. There you go. And yeah, 9 fire range. I wouldn't mind a couple more, to be honest with you. You've actually got a lot of other options with this deck as well. One that me and my friend were playing around with, but I couldn't really get it consistently enough, and I think the Flare Starter is just as good. It's using the Breakzar GX attack, and that's going to let you get 5 energies out the bin, attach them onto a Centiskorch, and that's just crazy good value. If you really want to go super high roll, I mean, that can win you the game just at the back of that, and Breakzar's obviously not a bad attacker either in its own right, so you can go down that route as well. But let me know what you think, guys. Let me know if you're leaning more towards Big Charm or Giant Bomb. You know, that's really confused those people that skip through to the end. Be like, yo, Shay, you've got a 62 card deck there, fella. Be like, ah, you weren't listening. But thank you for watching. As always, if you're after more Darkness to Blaze content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and check the playlist out. It's in the description, where I'm trying to put out at least one Darkness to Blaze deck profile or gameplay a day. So thanks for watching, as always, and I'll see you all next time.